Hello, Bravo bosses. This is the Bravo Investigator Podcast. I'm your host, Dana. And today on our Tuesday reality roundup, we are talking about The Bachelor, The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Teen Mom, The Golden Life, Southern Hospitality, The Real Housewives of Rhode Island, The Ultimatum, and The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Let's get into it. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope everyone's had a great week so far. And I will start with my standard typical apologies, as I always do. I apologize for not getting this episode out to you guys on Monday, as I normally do. I typically record these episodes on Sundays, but Sunday was pretty busy for me. It was my dog's birthday. Well, it was her birthday party because her birthday day is on Wednesday, but I'm in office on Wednesday. So had the party for her over the weekend because that's when my dad and my sister could come. And so basically they came down to my place. My sister got her like the cutest card because my sister's love language is cards. So she always has to do that. And then got my dog like this really cute, like happy birthday cookie that she devoured in 2 seconds. And we had this plan to take her to like an outdoor park, but because of the forest fires that were happening in Ontario, we just didn't think it would be a good idea for like her respiratory condition and all of that to be taking her somewhere outside for like a long period of time. So we ended up taking her to a patio for lunch and she got her pup cup and her carrots and she had a good day. So that's what we did on Sunday. We were real busy with that. And so I am a little bit late, but here we are and we have tons of fun topics to talk about today. So I'm really jazzed. But before we get into it, I thought maybe I would just share some of the other things that I'm watching that I'm really enjoying, just, for shits and giggles so that you guys know what I'm watching in case you want to watch it too. We are going to be talking about The Ultimatum today, but that is something that I am watching. So The Ultimatum is sort of like an offset of Love is Blind. It's on Netflix, and it's about a bunch of couples who are sort of at the crossroads in their relationship where one party in the relationship wants to get married, the other one doesn't. And the idea of the show is to like swap couples. It's so stupid. You swap couples with another couple there, you swap partners, and then you do an experiment where you live with that person for 3 weeks. Then you go back to living with your original person for 3 weeks. And then you decide if you want to propose to that person or you want to move on or you want to leave with someone from one of the other couples, right? The idea is it my partner that's the problem, or is it marriage, or is it just somebody else entirely that I want? So they dropped 8 episodes of that, I think last Wednesday. So I watched that over the weekend. And then this coming Wednesday, they're going to drop the finale and I guess the reunion. So that's coming out. And then something else that I'm watching is Married at First Sight, which is a favorite of mine. It's in season 20 and it's typically on Lifetime, but it's on Peacock this year. Last year it was also on Peacock. It sucked. But this year, I have to be honest with you guys, it's really, really good. I'm really, really into it. And I'm actually also recapping it. So if you go back and listen to my Saturday episode, you will hear my recap of episodes 1 to 3. And I do plan to keep recapping it. Other things that I am watching are McBee Dynasty, which I am not recapping, but it's just one of these stupid, silly shows to have in the background. I do like it, even though all of these characters are trash. Like, I do really like McBee Dynasty, so it is kind of like a fun watch in the background. I am kind of watching Real Housewives of OC also in the background. I feel like not a lot is happening, which is probably good. We did hear it was going to be a somewhat lighter season. That's why I also feel like I'm not going to be recapping it, but that is just something out there in the zeitgeist. Many of you who've been listening for a long time know that I'm a big 90 Day Fiancé watcher. So I am watching 90 Day Fiancé right now. They have a season of that. And they have a season of 90 Day Fiancé Last Resort, which is where they take a bunch of the couples and put them in an environment with like experts, sort of similar to Married at First Sight in a way, but it's like experts, therapy experts who try to help you deal with the issues in your relationship. And that show has actually been pretty entertaining. Now, coming out on July 29th, which is really soon, is House of Stassi. And the trailer came out for that today being Monday when I'm recording this. You're getting this on Tuesday. But I am so excited for this. It looks really good. It looks like there is strife between Stassi and Katie, which we have seen in some of the previews. Basically, Katie and Stassi sit down with each other at like a bar or something, and Katie says to Stassi, basically, unless the person came out of you or is married to you or is on your payroll, you don't want them in your life. And Stassi is absolutely riled up by this. And so I'm excited for that. And then there's apparently also tension between Katie Maloney and Christina Kelly. So you'll remember Christina Kelly from Vanderpump Rules. She was on various seasons as a friend of to Stassi, to Katie, to Lala, to many of the people. And so apparently there's some strife between them where Christina Kelly feels like Katie was not there for her when she was having a baby, but she felt like she was there for Katie and filmed an entire season with her while she was pregnant and all of this stuff and doesn't feel like Katie was there for her. So that sounds interesting. Then there's also apparently like issues between Katie and Taylor Strecker, who is one of Stassi's best friends and who's going to be on the show. She is the host of a podcast called Taste of Taylor. She's done a lot of different things for SiriusXM, so she's pretty like well versed in like the media space. But apparently there was something between them where they snubbed each other at like the House of Stassi premiere. So I don't really know, but I'm really jazzed for this. It looks so good. It looks like Stassi has issues with everyone in her life around her, but it has a different feel to it. It has a very Hulu vibe because it is a Hulu show. It has like this upbeat music. You're seeing Stassi from a different stance. You're not seeing her just in a serge dress. You see her as the star of the show, but also from a California vibe. I don't really know how to explain it. Like it has a very Selling Sunset type of vibe, if that makes sense. So a very like the upbeat music, the colors, the cars, things like that. It just really has that sort of upbeat, vibe to it. I don't know how else to describe it. So I think that I'm going to be recapping House of Stassi. I hope you guys decide to join me in the journey. If you don't want to, I completely understand that. But I think I want to give this show a chance. And it doesn't mean that we have to forgive Stassi as an entity, right? We are allowed to have villains that we like to watch on TV that we don't necessarily want to be friends with or support in person, right? And I'm not saying she is that for you or me or whatever. I'm just saying I think she's an entertaining reality TV star. This TV show looks good and I'm really excited about it. And I think I'm going to recap it here on the pod. So right now you're getting from me the reality roundups every Monday or Tuesday. We're still doing In the City. We have 2 more episodes of that. We've got the reunion. This week, I will be covering that on Thursday with Taylor Crumpton. And then I will be doing Married at First Sight as well this week. And then you can expect the same for the following week. And then I think we're going to be getting into House of Stassi. So I'm really jazzed for that. But let's get into our topics for the day because we have a lot. I'm excited. So we have The Bachelor on the docket. I like when we have The Bachelor on the docket because, as I've said, even though I don't watch The Bachelor anymore, if it even is on anymore, it's still nostalgic to me in so many ways. There's still so many people from the show that I follow, whose lives I'm still very interested in. We were dealing with the Peter Weber, Julie LaPlaca stuff for the past couple of weeks, and that was really fascinating. So I'm here for some more Bachelor stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about Kaitlyn Bristowe on the Not Skinny But Not Fat podcast. The reason I wanted to listen to this was because I wanted to see if there was any more detail about her move to New York, because I heard that she bought a place in New York or is renting a place in New York. But the way it was sort of put out in the media was sort of, it wasn't like a move. So I was like, wait, so did she move from Nashville? Now, she has been like secretly dating Zach Clark from The Bachelor for some time. You may remember Zach Clark from Tayshia's season, I believe. Tayshia and him ended up getting engaged. They were together for a while. They broke up. Tayshia ended up being with Luke Gumbelson for like 3 years. And I don't know what Tayshia is up to these days, but it ended up creating like a lot of gossip in the Bachelor community between the whole Tayshia and Kaitlyn of it all, because people really believed that Kaitlyn and Tayshia were very close friends. Now, Kaitlyn has gone on a couple of podcasts and talked about this in the past. And she said, you know, Tayshia was not a close friend of mine. I mean, she never used these exact words or people, but she alluded to the fact that Tayshia was not a close friend of hers. They only hung out once. People thought that they were friends because they were both co-hosting Claire's, no, it wasn't Claire's season of The Bachelor. It was whenever Chris Harrison got fired and then they co-hosted a couple of seasons of The Bachelor together. But then, Tayshia and Zach end up breaking up. Apparently, Zach reaches out to Kaitlyn. They start a relationship, and Kaitlyn reaches out to Tayshia, and then allegedly Tayshia doesn't respond for a day. And then after a day, sends her a text, something to the effect of, I always knew you were a bad person. So that just ended there. And I think that that's part of the reason why Kaitlyn has been so quiet about her relationship. But I think a big part of the reason, and she talks about that here in this episode of Not Skinny But Not Fat, she talks about the fact that her last relationship, which was with Jason Tarek, was so, so public to the point where she thinks that the publicness of it and them putting so much into their social media life is what ruined their relationship. Like their relationship became about social media. So she really wanted to try to protect and like nurture this relationship. But she calls him Bruno. She apparently went on another reality show recently and talked about him a lot and called him Bruno. She talked about him a lot in this episode. So it's interesting because I wonder when she'll decide to come out with it. And it's not quite clear still about the move because it seems like she has her house in Nashville. She has friends that are staying there, like living there. She will be going back there for like events and things like that. But it does sound like she's moved to New York. Now, I'm kind of concerned for her dogs because she has 2 golden retrievers. She says that her outdoor space is bigger than her indoor space in New York, but I cannot imagine having 2 golden retrievers in a condo. Like, she said that she put out like pee pads for them, but they got like so completely soaked and wet because there was like a thunderstorm. I'm like, wait, what? You can't have golden retrievers go on those things. Like, I'm trying to picture this. Like, my dog goes on those things, but my dog is a Pomeranian. How? Like, I'm not blaming her. I'm just trying to figure this out because she keeps saying in Nashville, she has this huge big backyard and she just lets the dogs go out there and run amok, right? One of her dogs doesn't even know how to walk on a leash. I'm sure there's golden retrievers in New York. I just can't picture it because it's such a difficult place to have big dogs. So I don't know how she's going to figure out that space situation, but I feel bad for the dogs that they're not going to have their backyard anymore because all a pet parent truly wants is a backyard for their dogs, right? It's like what we aspire to get. It's why we work hard because we want a backyard for our dogs. So crazy that she's giving that up, but I get it. She's giving it up for love. So she says that she still doesn't want to say his name. She was trying to protect it. And she does call it a possible third engagement. So it shows how far she's really come with this guy. But at the same time, and I've always really liked Kaitlyn Bristowe, but when it comes to Jason Tarek, the fact that she can still not go a day, it seems, without talking about him, I find a little odd, right? Like, she mentions him in this episode. She mentions the fact that he's dated all these girls with similar names. Oh, remember the episode she did some months back where she was livid mostly about the fact that he named his dog her baby name. And it's just like, you guys have been broken up for 3 years. Like, let's move on. Like, Jason Tarek just got engaged to this new girl named Catherine, who's like rescues dogs and stuff. So let's move on. But yeah, she still seems to hold a lot of anger and resentment towards that relationship. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. What she has explained and what they both explained is that, yeah, their relationship became very much like for social media and they got lost in it and they forgot to keep choosing each other. I just don't know why she hates him so much. I'm just curious. I mean, if she has a good reason, I'm all here for it, right? Like, I'm just really curious. I just don't feel like she's given us a lot to really understand the feelings there. But anyways, apparently she also has like a lifelong NDA with ABC, which she says that all of the bachelors and bachelorettes do, and that's why she can never really write a real book. That's interesting because I feel like a lot of them have. Or isn't that what Peter Weber was saying recently? Because I feel like he did want to come out and rebut a lot of the stuff that Julie LaPlaca was saying, but I feel like he wasn't allowed to because of his NDA. So I just thought that was really interesting. And something else that she said that was really interesting was, as we know, when she was the Bachelorette, she ended up picking Sean Booth. That was his name, right? Sean Booth over Nick Viall. We all know what Nick Viall does today. But she says that even though she was with Sean for like a few years, I think she moved to Nashville to be with him. At the end of the day, she truly believes that they broke up over Nick Viall and over the fact that he could not get over the fact that she slept with him during that experiment, during the experience of The Bachelor. Isn't that nuts? I mean, the concept of the show is what it is, right? So the fact that he could never truly get over that, even though she chose you and you're together for years, that is something you could never really get over. It's like, wow, wow. I mean, I guess it is what it is. I guess you learn like that's not the kind of show I'd ever go on again because I definitely can't handle that kind of like competition. All right, let's move on to the Real Housewives of New Jersey, and we're going to do a little update on Milania Giudice because we finally have some information here. We know that she was recently arrested for domestic violence. We didn't know exactly regarding who or what. Then I reported to you guys that she came out on TikTok and was saying, like, oh my God, you guys, like these things happen. And like the photo that was taken of me, it wasn't a good photo, you guys. That was AI. Don't even like think that was me, you guys. And it was just very much not taking it seriously. But now we have some more information from People. So this article's from a few days ago. It says, police video shows Real Housewife of New Jersey, Milania Giudice in the back of a cop car after domestic violence arrest. So it says, sorry, I just want to read you guys this article. The Real Housewives of New Jersey star Teresa Giudice's daughter, Milania, was arrested in connection to a domestic violence incident 2 months ago. On Friday, July 17th, People obtained police footage showing Milania 20 when the arrest took place in New Jersey. She was handcuffed and seated in the back seat of a Montville Township Police Department car. She appeared to be smiling and laughing at times in the footage, which does not contain audio. And I'm looking at the photos, and she definitely looks like she's laughing and smiling. The arrest took place on May 14th. Milania was charged with simple assault and purposely, knowingly causing bodily harm, law enforcement previously confirmed. She appeared virtually in court on Tuesday, July 14th for a hearing pertaining to the arrest alongside her attorney, Alan Kraminski. She entered a not guilty plea in the assault case. According to prosecutors, Milania allegedly struck the victim in the domestic violence incident, which led to her arrest. In a clip from the hearing published by TMZ, a judge said prosecutors alleged that Milania did knowingly cause bodily injury to another, specifically by striking the victim LR, okay, those are the initials, in the head with her fist, causing redness to the middle of the victim's forehead during a domestic dispute in the violation of a disorderly person's offense. The next court hearing is scheduled for August 11th. And then it just goes on to what she said on TikTok, which I already discussed, but like, LR? Whose initials are LR? Louis Ruelas? But like some people did end up finding either some pictures that she's posted with him since or something. I forget if it was either a picture with him or a picture of items where it had like something on it to show that he was there or something like that. And then Milania and Teresa have been like posting bikini photos like left and right. So whatever this is about, they don't seem to be taking very seriously. I don't know why, considering the family's history. Like you would think that they would take legal issues seriously. I am very curious if it involves Louis. We haven't heard anything about him in years. I mean, the last time we were talking about Louis, we weren't saying good things, right? We had like the bodedal of it all, and we had all of this shit. And then things kind of quieted down because they weren't on TV anymore. And the one weird thing always was that the kids really liked him. And that was the one thing that set, I guess, everyone else apart from like the family, because we were all like, Teresa, what are you doing? Don't marry this guy. He's scary. But the kids were like, no, we really, really like him. And we were always confused by that. So I don't know if he's the LR that she hurt, but like, I just wish this family would take their legal issues more seriously because I don't know. I just don't. It'll just lead to bigger and worse things, right? If you don't take these things seriously and you think that you're always going to be able to get out of it with money or family or whatever, it's just like not a realistic way to think, especially when you know that worse can happen. So it's confusing. I'm waiting to hear more because I am still confused. Okay, let's move on to Teen Mom. But I do just want to preface this by saying that I am not a regular listener of any of Kailyn Lowry's podcasts or Lindsie Chrisley's podcasts. So even though we are talking about those topics today, I just want to express that I am not super well versed in all of the details of the drama that's going on regarding all of this stuff, I will say, basically, or anything necessarily Teen Mom related, because it is kind of hard to keep up with them now, given that they're not on TV anymore. So basically, you're keeping up by way of like news articles and Instagram accounts and stuff. And like, I do follow all of these Teen Mom Instagram accounts and I try to keep up. But these ladies, these Teen Mom ladies, are basically getting into drama on the daily. So it is really hard to get to know all of the intricate details unless you are like a Teen Mom Instagram account and that's what you focus on. So I just wanted to say, do not come for me today. If I mess up a detail, I am going to do my best. So Kailyn Lowry has a podcast network called the Killer Network, and she has a variety of podcasts of her own under that network, in addition to other people's. So she has her podcast, Almost Famous. She has Kailyn the Chaos. She has Coffee Convos, which she does with Lindsie Chrisley. Lindsie Chrisley, you will know from the Chrisley family. Her parents were in jail. We know who the Chrisleys are, but she's obviously estranged from her family, and she does this joint podcast with Kailyn called Coffee Convos. She also has her own podcast, Southern Tea. And then other podcasts under this network are ones like Caitlin and Tyler's podcast, which I think is called like Break It Down or something like that. So she's running this whole podcast network. And then a few months back, Lindsie Chrisley got a DUI, which I did end up reporting to you guys on. And basically ever since then, there's been some quiet on the front in terms of what's going to happen now when it comes to Coffee Convos, when it comes to their friendship, just when it comes to everything with regards to these girls. Because there was basically no new episodes of Coffee Convos for a while. It was all like encore episodes, and same with Southern Tea. So recently, Lindsie Chrisley came out on her podcast, Southern Tea, to speak on the DUI of it all. She didn't say much, but basically what she said was she can't really speak on it because it's an ongoing legal matter and she will respect and trust the process. Now, people were really interested in this. A lot to do with the fact that they were wondering what it would do to Lindsie and Kailyn's friendship, because Kailyn was recently, or is currently, on a podcast tour called the Fatherless Tour. Lindsie was supposed to be on that tour and then was no longer. Plus, with like the encore episodes of Coffee Convos, people were wondering if Kailyn dumped Lindsie as a friend and as a podcast co-host. So basically, Kailyn jumps in there in the episode and says that she would never not be friends with Lindsie because of this, and that she would never drop her from the podcast, and that she was only dropped from the tour just because she felt like Lindsie needed some time to herself. Now, Lindsie said that this was a wake-up call for her. And even though she didn't really, because it's an ongoing legal matter, she didn't really express whether she did this or not, whether she indeed drank and drove. She did say that because it's like a wake-up call, she said that she can't let heartbreak and betrayal dictate her life anymore. So I kind of took that. I mean, who knows? I'm just speculating, but I could take that to mean I think she did break up with a long-term boyfriend recently, and maybe because of that was really upset and, you know, drank and drove, something to that effect. But it was interesting because Kailyn says in the episode that she does take this kind of thing very seriously. Alcoholism has been in her family, and she can only take Lindsie at her word. And Lindsie has told her whether she drank or not. So it's interesting that like Kailyn has that information, but the public doesn't. I don't really know, but it's interesting to hear that basically Kailyn kept her friend here. But then there was another turn of events, and this was on the Coffee Convos podcast. Now, this is regarding Kailyn's friend, Kristen. Kristen and Kailyn have been friends for over a decade. We saw Kristen on many episodes of Teen Mom. It's sort of hard to describe her in any other way, because how it goes in this Teen Mom world is a lot of like the friends. I don't know if you guys would remember, but like even at the reunions, they were always allowed to bring a close friend. They were always filming scenes with other close friends or other moms, not necessarily the moms on the show. So Kristen was someone that was really close in Kailyn's life and part of her podcast network in terms of the working relationships. So basically on this episode of Coffee Convos, Kailyn explains that she received information from friends of hers that Kristen was betraying her and saying all of this horrible stuff about her. So she wrote Kristen this really long email and then didn't get a response. And apparently she had also been trying to work with the Chrisleys, meaning Lindsay's parents, when everyone knows that Lindsie is estranged from them and all of this stuff. And so they were talking about how sad it was given that they were friends with Kristen for so long and they couldn't believe she would do this and yada, yada, yada. Well, then Savannah Chrisley, who is one of the Chrisley sisters, who is estranged from Lindsie, but still speaks to her parents, she basically came out with a message saying, in response to this podcast, basically saying, this isn't true. Kristen was only helping my parents with a meta contact. Basically, they couldn't get into their Facebook or they lost their Facebook password. So Kristen had a contact at Meta and was just helping them with that. And so I'm like, wait, that's it, right? That's what this is about. Now, a friend of mine did end up speaking with Kailyn and getting some more information. And apparently there are more texts and emails allegedly to show that Kristen was working with them and in a relationship with them in some way. But my friend was unable to read where the messages came from or what they even said. So that's where this leaves us, right? Now, I thought it was really interesting that Kailyn decided to keep Lindsie in her life. And when I thought about it more, when you look at the timing, it kind of makes sense because Kailyn historically has had a lot of these really close friendships and lost a lot of these really close friendships, right? Even one of her podcast partners now, Becky, I mean, they had a many-year strife, right? Like this is kind of a common thing that happens in Kailyn's life where she gets in like a big fight with one of her very long-term friends. And I don't really know what happened here. I haven't seen any of the messages or information where allegedly Kristen was talking shit about her. But I would say this. If one of my closest friends and confidants that I've worked with for years sent me an email saying like, you said all this shit about me and asking her to respond. Oh, and apparently the issue as well was that she was sending this meta contact and this information or helping out the Chrisleys on company time. It just sort of feels like when you're talking about like company time, it really feels like you're getting super petty at this point. So also to send an email to one of your closest friends, as opposed to just going up to her and talking to her, I don't know that I would have responded to the email either. They're taking, and when I say they, I mean like Lindsie and Kailyn, because they were talking on the podcast together, they were taking Kristen's silence as like an admission. But again, like if my closest friend sent me an email as opposed to coming to speak to me about our friendship, I don't know that I respond to it either. And I haven't seen any of the evidence. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying like, if this is just about a meta contact, and even if she did give that information to the Chrisleys on company time, is this what we're really talking about here? And then some people online were actually saying like, Kailyn and Lindsie have forgiven men for way more than this shit right here. And, it's kind of true, right? Like, when you have these long-term friendships, I'm not saying you always have to keep them, right? Sometimes people grow apart and sometimes people change. But Kailyn has been through a lot in her life, and I feel like she has been abandoned a lot in her life, and she has been screwed over a lot in her life, which I think comes with the territory when you end up becoming sort of like rich and famous, right? You never know who's using you and who's not. But then I think you also have to be careful of being so suspicious of everyone around you because you're going to lose the people that you care about the most or that did care about you for real. And I thought Kristen was one of those people. Listen, I could be dead ass wrong. I don't know any of these people in real life. I haven't seen any of the messages. I don't really know. I just think it's really sad. But it's also really typical of Kailyn to lose another long-term friend. I'll just say that. All right, let's move on to the Golden Life. So as we know, this is sort of like that spin-off Real Housewives of New York show that is going to be on E! We were not impressed with the casting once Jill Zarin said all of the horrible things that she said at the Super Bowl, but she was kicked off, so that was great. But regardless, people were like kind of tepid about this cast. I mean, we have Ramona. She's been offensive. So we had some people excited, some people not so excited. Well, they've had some updating casting news, which I think is interesting because I thought they were done filming this, but allegedly they are coming out with more episodes and they are bringing on Margaret Josephs and Candace Bushnell as friends of. Now, I love me a Marge, okay? Marge is hilarious. She's fun. She's exciting. So I think that would be cool. Candace Bushnell apparently is close with Dorinda. And guys know like that old scene, that old line where Dorinda's like, how am I doing? Not well, bitch. It was actually Candace Bushnell that said to her, like, how are you doing? So she's actually been a part of a lot of these parties and scenes and stuff like that. She's in the mix. So it could be a fun work around. wonder how far we're taking this show because, like I said, I thought this was done. I assumed this would be like an 8-episode stint. Maybe they're just trying to find a way to spice it up. Maybe it didn't turn out as good as they thought. So maybe they decided, hey, let's throw in another couple of episodes with another couple of stars and see if we can get it going, bring it back to life, the golden life. I don't know, but I'm here for it. I mean, both of these people are exciting casting decisions to me. So I'm all here for it. All right, let's move on to Southern Hospitality because we have some very weird news coming out of Charleston this past week. So basically, TJ Dinch posted about his Sir Wiener's business. If you guys are watchers of Southern Hospitality, you know that TJ has this hot dog business, which is doing pretty well. So he posted about it on Instagram over the weekend and he said, it felt criminal not posting for National Hot Dog Day yesterday. I didn't know there was a National Hot Dog Day. Now I know. He said, but honestly, I've been so focused on what's next that I haven't really stopped to reflect. For a long time, I let someone convince me that I needed them for my dreams to become reality, that I was moving too fast, that I should stay where I was, that my future depended on staying under someone else's umbrella instead of building my own. I started believing it. But at some point, you have to ask yourself if you're living your own story or someone else's. So I'm betting on myself. At Sir Wiener's was never just about hot dogs. It's proof that sometimes the bigger you leap, that you can take in walking away of what feels comfortable and trusting yourself enough to build something from the ground up. Maybe I'll fail, maybe I'll succeed, but every win, every mistake, every lesson will be mine. I finally stopped asking for permission and started believing I was enough all along. Charleston and Richmond, Virginia, Sir Wiener's brick and mortars are happening. Stay tuned. So everyone was a little confused about this because when he's posting things like, staying under someone else's umbrella and someone trying to keep me down, people were assuming that he was talking about Leva, right? I mean, we basically saw Leva sort of act like this towards Joe last season on Southern Hospitality, where she was like, we don't want you running a business with Lamar and I. But she did give TJ some opportunities, but we never really saw, I guess, the back and forth of that. So people were assuming he is talking about Leva. And then 10 hours later, Leva posted on Instagram a photo of a guy like kind of hanging a sheet over a railing. And the sheet says, not being liked by fucking losers is usually a good sign. And it's like, oh my God, is she talking about TJ? Because the timing seemed like she was. Then Leva and TJ unfollowed each other. So everybody's just like, what the hell is going on in Charleston? Okay, but then there's more. So the picture that TJ posted that I just talked about Sir Wiener's, where he made that whole caption, Leva ended up commenting underneath that. So after he makes this post, after she makes her post, then she comments under his post and says, with like a bunch of laughing faces, and says, guys, this has nothing to do with TJ. I didn't even see his post until today. I wish him all the best. So we're like, oh, okay. So she was just posting about like other fucking losers. I guess if she's saying like there's nothing going on, then there's nothing going on. But then Queens of Bravo reported that apparently season 5 of Southern Hospitality has officially been renewed, but Leva is out. What do you mean Leva is out? How is that even possible? Leva owns Republic. She owns all of the places along this King Street, right? And Southern Hospitality was like her idea. And she basically just left Southern Charm not that long ago so that she could focus on Southern Hospitality. Now, if she did something wrong to the point where like the cast don't want to work with her, well, that's a whole different issue. But then it's also like, what's going on that you don't want to work with her? And why are we continuing the show at her establishments? Are we not continuing the show at her establishments? Like, it's like, what's going on? This just feels like so incredibly crazy. And how can all of these things not be connected? Like, who could TJ possibly be talking about that was keeping him down and working under him and all working to keep him? Yeah, it just doesn't really make sense unless he's talking about Leva. But then Leva's like, it's not me. But then all of a sudden she's not on the show anymore. For her not to be on the show anymore, she had to do something hella bad. That being said, some people have said that she has. She has done some pretty horrendous things. So I don't really know where this is coming from. I wonder if Bravo, I guess they do. I guess Bravo would have the rights to take her idea it was probably a mixture of ideas if you think about it, right? It probably was never just like her idea. It was probably like an offshoot of Vanderpump Rules where Bravo said to her, hey, we have this idea to do a show that's something like this. What do you think? And we would do it with your establishments. But I don't really know what this is, but I am hungry to know more because you know what? And I've been telling you guys this forever. Southern Hospitality is such a good show. It is the most OG Vanderpump Rules adjacent thing that we have because these people actually still work in restaurants and are still poor and still all date and bang each other. So it really, really, really is so good. And I'm very excited that we are renewed for season 5 with or without Leva, quite frankly. Okay, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Rhode Island. And this is kind of a funny story. So you guys know those Netflix documentary reels that everybody is doing where it's like sitting down for my Netflix documentary to talk about my narcissistic mother or whatever, right? I did one with my dog. So Rulla from the Real Housewives of Rhode Island did one, but she did one where she puts like a clown mask, like not a real clown mask, but like an overlay of like a clown mask, like over her TikTok of her Netflix documentary sit down. And her caption reads, an ugly side chick prepping for her Netflix documentary on how she knew he had a beautiful wife and children, but didn't care because they had such a connection and it was meant to be, in quotes. Now, this was cringe. I'm sorry. Like, you're making fun of the mistress who had sex with your husband. Like, no one thinks that she's the fool. Everybody thinks that you're the fool, yet you're the one wearing the clown mask and the sit down. I don't know. Like, it's just, it also feels like too soon in a way, because to us, it feels like Brian and the mistress just recently ended. If anything, they're probably still going, right? So to us, this feels way too soon. And she's also sort of assuming that we all like hate the mistress with every fiber of our being in the same way that she does, which we don't know her. So again, this was just felt really embarrassing in my opinion. So there's this account, I want to just shout them out. It's called The Real Alleged Tea. And basically they posted the video of Rulla doing her Netflix documentary like any other Bravo account would. And Rulla ended up responding to them and said, yes, but my husband answered for it and is being held accountable. So why are you supporting someone who attempted to wreck a home while she was also married herself? And why can't she accept the fact that he had chosen his wife and family over her? Sad. And the account wrote back, I definitely understand your perspective as his wife. I think the question people have is why all of the anger seems directed towards her when your husband was the one who made a commitment to you. You mentioned that he's been held accountable, but we haven't seen any of that. All we see is you defending him over and over. Meanwhile, he's screwed around repeatedly behind your back. As viewers, all we can go on is what we see. And what we see is your husband making you look like the clown that you claim Beth is. Beth is the mistress, right? So go The Real Alleged Tea, because that is some very true points. But it's just like, again, Rulla, like, if you're going to come back next season, which I believe she is, to the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, we need some accountability. We need some honesty because we cannot have another season of this ridiculousness. Okay, let's move on to The Ultimatum, which was a show that I had mentioned earlier on in the episode that I'm watching on Netflix right now. So as I mentioned, it's about these couples that will swap partners in the couple to see if it's a better fit. One of the couples in the experiment are Blake and Haley. Blake is 26, Haley is 23. I really thought Haley would become my favorite on the show, and then she sort of became my least favorite. She's 23, so I'm struggling to understand her fully. And she's the kind of, okay, basically her issue with Blake is that he's not emotional enough. When we get down to it at the very end, she wants him to provide her all 5 love languages at all times. And she ends up getting so frustrated with him at the smallest things, but they're bigger things. And she can't sort of like rein in her emotions when it comes to her frustration with him. For him, I feel like he's a pretty good communicator and he's doing his best to give her what she needs. But I can see how that also gets very confusing. And I really thought he was a good guy until I saw him in his trial marriage, which is when they swapped the partners, because there was this one point in time where he doesn't talk to his trial partner for a couple of days. She accuses him of hanging out with Haley, his original trial partner, and going to the movies with her. And he decides, when they have this sit down, he doesn't deny it, but then he comes back to her like a day later, I guess after he's talked to Haley or quote unquote had some time to think about it, but it seems pretty clear he's talked to Haley. He did one of those like, now that I've thought about it, I have things to say, right? My mom used to always do that. We get these fights and then she'd like slam my door shut and then she'd come back in my room and be like, and another thing. So basically he comes back in with like, and another thing, you know, you accused me of going to the movies with Haley. And like, if this was brought to a court of law, they would expect proof. They wouldn't just like take it lying down. They'd be like, where's the proof? And it's like, are you really coming back a day later to say this? So he really comes down on this girl in a kind of aggressive way, in my opinion, over nothing, because he probably was spending time with Haley, which isn't like the end of the world, right? Like it's technically not even breaking the rules of the show. You probably shouldn't be talking to your original partner, but still, he just was like really aggressive with the other girl. Now, this article comes out right after basically the show aired from TMZ saying Ultimatum star Blake Robertson arrested for assault after the show filmed. So I'm going to read you guys this article really quickly. It says Blake Robertson, a contestant on season 4 of The Ultimatum, was arrested after being accused of an assault involving his girlfriend, Haley Hendrick, TMZ has learned. Blake was arrested in October 2025 after filming for the Netflix reality show Wrapped at a business in Natchitoches, Texas, for allegedly putting his hands on Haley, with whom he appeared on the show. However, the reality star's attorney, Sean Hightower, tells us Blake's case was rightfully dismissed by the prosecutor almost immediately, and all records were expunged. Haley confirmed to us that she had declined to press charges, but she has had private conversations with Blake about the incident, but believes accountability needs to be taken publicly as well. So I was actually surprised to hear that. I actually kind of thought it would be the opposite, given the contention in their relationship and how fiery she gets. So I was really surprised to hear that. But whether or not charges were pressed or any of that, it sort of sounds to me like they are no longer together, because sort of, how can you be after something like that? That's just sort of the impression that I'm getting from this article, from what she said in the article, and from the way that both of them have been moving on social media. It's giving single to me. So it's probably for the best. It's weird because it's like, if you want someone to be more emotional, I just don't know that you can make someone do that. It's just, if that's just not in their character, then maybe you're just in the wrong relationship, right? Like, I just think that was it from the jump, and maybe this wasn't the right show for them either, because it wasn't really about like a lack of commitment for her. It was her having a partner who just didn't possess what she's looking for. But what I also thought was really interesting about Haley was that when she sat down with her aunts, because you kind of have to sit down with family and stuff, her aunt was like, you know, I'm Team Blake, I always have been, but sometimes I think you're looking for problems in Blake because there aren't any. So I do wonder if he was as bad of a boyfriend as she said. I mean, it's hard to tell because you're watching these shows and you're watching her get so heated and upset. And sometimes I'm just not sure if she just needs to fight, and that's part of her personality and part of the fact that she grew up like really in like a rough way, right? Maybe she just sort of looks for problems in relationships and creates problems in relationships. And that's the thing that she needs to work on. And that, you know, it wasn't really Blake to begin with, right? Not that necessarily Blake is the person for her or that he was doing nothing wrong. I just think that she maybe needs to look a little bit inward in terms of what she's actually looking for in a relationship, because I think a lot of it is she's looking for that passion maybe that isn't necessarily there. Okay, let's move on to our last topic, which is the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And this just came out today being Monday, but Angie K and her husband Sean have split, which is really, really sad. They were together for 27 years, which is such an accomplishment. And it is something that we even said about Kyle and Mauricio. Like, a 20+ year marriage is a successful marriage in my book. There are rumors that he cheated with a stylist at the salon. We do not know the sex of the stylist. There were rumors, obviously, about him in the past, about him being gay, but I don't really like to speculate on people's sexuality, and I don't think that has anything to do with it anyways. If it's cheating, it's cheating. It doesn't really matter, but, you know, this is really sad. It's sad for their family. And, I sort of wish them the best, but I could see them continuing to be friends, especially for their daughter, Electra. They do so many things as a family, but I think they're just so different now as people, which is sort of something that happens when you get on one of these shows. You sort of change who you are in a sense. We've seen it happen with a lot of these families. So it's definitely sad to see, but I hope again that they can keep a good relationship for Electra. All right, you guys, that is the end of the episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at The Bravo Investigator. You can watch episodes like today on YouTube, and you can join the Facebook page as well. Also, don't forget that I have a whole other podcast called All You Need Is You, which is basically a guide to living your best solo life. You can find that podcast in the description of the show notes for this episode. You can also just type it into your Apple app or your Spotify app. All You Need Is You, and you can follow the show there, download the show, listen to the show, do all the things with the show. That is everything for today. I love you, BBs, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Bravo Investigator. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and join the Facebook page. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review.